Welcome to the Free Your Mind and Your Arse Will Follow podcast with me, your host, Biba Tanya. In this episode, I speak to one of my favourite teachers and mentors, the bar housewife herself, Yolande Norris-Clarke. Best-selling author, mother of 10, free birth advocate and businesswoman, Yolande's teachings on birth, mothering and life in general have expanded me and enlightened me beyond words. In this episode, we discuss how birth can impact your reality creation, how we are all magnificently magic, and how she mothers her children with complete ease while being, like me, a homeschooling, self-employed mother. All details to follow or work with Yolande will be in the comments of wherever you're listening. Enjoy. Okay, thank you so much for joining me, Yolande. You're my dream podcast guest, and I absolutely do not say that lightly. But I just wanted to give a sort of a tiny bit of backstory as to how I discovered you, because I think when people know that I'm very outspoken on my social media that I had an unassisted home birth in 2018, and I gush about your work so much that I think people might assume that that's how I found you, that you were my free birth guru. And I think it's extraordinary indication of your censorship that actually I didn't have a clue about you or the Free Birth Society when I was pregnant with my youngest daughter. I didn't even have a name for what I was doing. I was just birthing outside the system. And I looked several times online for some, for women doing the same, and never found anything other than horror stories or what a dreadful idea this is, which I think speaks massively to your censorship. So I didn't discover you as a pregnant mum. My daughter was 18 months too and it was 2021. And you'd just moved to Costa Rica, and someone sent me your page and put something along the lines of, "You're not the only renegade mother insisting her children don't see the bullshit," something along those lines. And I started following you, and I fell immediately in love. I immediately joined your community, and as soon as your book portal came out, immediately bought it and got it delivered, which to get anything delivered to me is a trek in itself. And it is my favorite read of all time. I live in a high risk fire zone here in Portugal, and during the summer months you have to have what's known as your grab bag by the front door in case the fires spread, and the kids know that mummy's books are more important than our papers. And this is one of them. Grab the Eckhart Tolle, the Gabor Mate and the Yolande Norris-Clarke, and let's run. That's our fire protocol in our house. But I know that people follow my content particularly because of my story of leaving the UK, and I always put it down to my manifesting. I'm the manifesting queen. I can manifest anything I want, and I fell into a bit of a shithole with manifesting over the last 12 months. And no such thing as coincidence, but I was reading Portal, and these two paragraphs jumped out at me. When they say, isn't it, when you're struggling with your faith or something, just pick the Bible up and open it to a page and it's the one you read. Well, that happens with my Bible too. And I read these two paragraphs, and they hit me so much in the heart that I immediately wrote a blog about them. But could I read you those paragraphs, and could we discuss them, because they're just brilliant. Your lovely assistant, when I was arranging this interview, she messaged me back and she was like, "Yes, we'd love to. Could you give us some sample questions?" And I started typing them out, and then I thought, shit, I'm actually trying to use this as an on-air coaching session. Like, how would Yolande do that? So I stupidly didn't mark them from the book. So I'm going to jump into my blog and read them, if that's okay. So these are Yolande Norris-Clarke's words from Portal. Oh, if you'd think I'd have got this. Here they are. Okay. Unfortunately, reality creation is not, or is no longer, the norm. And to understand why, we need only look at the general state of birth today. Birth inevitably leaves a potent spiritual imprint upon both mother and baby. And we've each been programmed with the self-memories of our arrival into the world, which are in turn overlaid by ancestral baggage and media messaging. And then a few chapters later, we go on to say, when we consent, this struck me. I got chills when I read this paragraph, Yolanda. Yes, that's what I'm doing. When we consent to hate ourselves, to poison ourselves, to seek solace in substances and habits and thoughts that offer only a surface consolation, we are making a choice to betray ourselves and our children by choosing the path of destruction instead of creation, thereby replicating the original trauma of our psychic fracture during birth. And that is from the phenomenally good, incredible portal. Yolanda, when I read that, because I thought I'd done quite a lot of work, you know, I do all my nervous system regulation and I've gone into all my traumas, and you know, I was like sex worker, so let's check all this trauma. Never once occurred to me that I was replicating something that I never once thought to go back to my entry into the world, which by all accounts, according to my mum, was super traumatic. I was a forceps delivery, but she was unconscious. She'd been blue lighted from this midwifery centre. This was in the 80s. So I thought, for my curiosity, and maybe something that anyone listening to this could take from, can you dive into that for me? How am I fucking up my manifestations by being a forceps baby, basically?
Oh my goodness. This is the topic of our age, of I think everyone's life, whether we believe it or not, whether we know it or not. And this is the topic that I have been exploring and unraveling throughout my entire life in regards to my own life, but also this whole subject is really a huge part of my mission, and comes through in all the areas of my work, not just in birth and midwifery, but in the work I do in the realm of birth trauma, obviously, and also natural health, and all the ways that I work in the self-healing space, which incidentally are all the same, you know, birth and self-healing and manifesting and self-sabotage. It's all the same thing, right? So really what trauma leads to, and especially the very primal, very foundational trauma that occurs during birth, the consequences of this inaugural trauma is a kind of inscription onto what I refer to as the quartet, or the quadernity of the self. So that's the body, mind, psyche, spirit, soul, spirit or soul. So when we experience traumatic events, this results in a kind of imprinting on all of those levels of being. So trauma affects our physiology, you know, our cells and our tissue, and in particular the fascial system of the body, which is like the energy grid, and it holds memory, among other things, the fascia. But also the mind and the brain are affected by trauma, both on an intellectual level and on the cellular level as well. Our psyche is affected, so all of our levels of consciousness receive this trauma imprint, and the consciousness is different than the brain and the mind, of course, so it's a different realm. But we're also affected on a soul level when we experience the pain of trauma, and all of this, especially during infancy, and especially as we are literally entering the world, this creates a kind of set point for stimulation and for nervous system activation and for fear and stress and abuse. And in this way, trauma is really, it's inscribed on us. And that initial inscription becomes the template for the normalization of abuse in our individual lives and also on the collective level. And it creates a sense of familiarity towards abuse. So what I see in evidence all around us is that through birth, we really become habituated from the very beginning of our existence as incarnate beings to associate abuse with, well, with all kinds of things, but also with emergence of any kind, with expansion of any kind, with intimacy, and even with growth. And I can't emphasize enough how much industrial birth and industrial obstetrics is sexual abuse. So, you've talked a lot about your experiences, Biba, in re-traumatizing yourself inadvertently in a number of ways. And of course, we all are in the business of doing that constantly throughout our lives. But the sexual aspect of industrial birth is so often blatantly denied. And even in supposedly trauma-informed circles, the sexualized nature of birth trauma is really downplayed and minimized. I think because there's just it's very, very uncomfortable for most people to acknowledge that this is happening. But birth itself for most people is not only the foundational experience of both life and trauma and the genesis of our sexuality, but it's also this very formative intersection between sexuality and harm, and sexuality and molestation, and sexuality and torture. Because whether we like it or not, whether you're comfortable with this or not, and I know that you are, Biba, but so many people are not, as you're aware, it is unequivocally true that birth is sex, and that birth is the conclusion of sex, and it's also the continuum of sex, because life is sex. And the fact that this idea offends so many people really just proves how completely inverted and deranged and pornographied most people's sexual template is, right? So the cognitive dissonance is so extreme that instead of acknowledging that we're so uncomfortable with the idea that that birth has anything to do with sex, because we've been traumatized into viewing sexuality itself as prurient and indecent and inextricable from the pornographic, most people will often actually become angry and deny that sex has anything whatsoever to do with birth, which is absurd and patently false. But they'll also engage in that very classic manipulation tactic, which is the reversal. So they'll turn around and then they'll accuse me of being a pervert because I've dared to suggest that birth is related to our sexuality, when in fact, the other person has been so injured by trauma and so conditioned to know sex as shame that they associate sex not as the creative power of life itself, which is what birth is all about, but as something that is inherently obscene and shameful. And there's a sort of compartmentalization of like birth over here and sexuality is over here. And that compartmentalization is also part of the design of what industrial obstetrics does. So the vast majority of human beings that are walking around on this planet today were literally born into a very inverted, toxic matrix of sexualized trauma and overt sexual abuse, and also a kind of masochistic submission in a way, because there is no mother and baby. Like there's mother baby only. So mother and baby from the moment of conception onward, and certainly throughout and following the birth process, are one. We are an interdependent, synergistic, symbiotic organism. And the reason that we see birth as this sort of mechanistic process that rightfully separates the mother from the baby and extracts the baby from the mother's body is because this is exactly what industrial obstetric birth is designed to symbolize and also to actualize. So the baby is removed from the true matrix, and incidentally, matrix means womb and mother.
Yes, you go into this important. I loved that explanation.
It's like the matrix is wonderful. The matrix is the real thing, and the true matrix is the vortex of the mother and baby as mother baby. And it's through the ritual of obstetric abuse that we are born into fracture and pain and sexual harm and this sort of sadomasochistic urge. Because when you really think about it, all of the processes and procedures that are involved in industrial birth revolve around violation and fragmentation. And it's the fragmentation of mother baby and the fracture of our symbiotic synergistic connection that's also at the heart of our inability to fully optimally individuate. So individuation is essentially the process of maturation, that ideally results in becoming an adult, which involves developing a capacity for self-responsibility and self-ownership, self-knowledge, self-actualization, activation, and the kind of initiative that allows us to express our full divine life purpose and our full creative energy. So a person that's a fully formed adult, like a grown-ass woman, basically, or man, is psychically and spiritually whole, right? And we can generate our own sense of approval and validation from within. So we don't need the crowd to validate us. We don't need the cool people out there to tell us that we're okay. We know that we're okay. And this requires a fundamental baseline of comfort and familiarity with pleasure and with ease and with joy and with deservingness. Because unless ease and awareness and clarity and confidence are our baseline, then we're not going to easily be able to deal with or process or integrate or respond in a healthy way to discomfort, right? So if pain and suffering and trauma and even discomfort itself are our baseline, then we don't have the fundamental tools to work with and to move through various kinds of healing into a state of resolution. And I think this definitely ties in with the topic of physical self-healing as well, of course, because all dis-ease arises as a response to some kind of discord, right? Like inner conflicts that we lack the tools with which to integrate on the level of our subconscious, which then become externalized and expressed by the body and by various organs. So yeah, I mean, it's all interconnected. And when we're born into abuse, and when our very, very first experiences of life on Earth constitute this shattering of the authentic matrix of safety and love and blissful connection with our mothers and with the divine energy of all creation, because that state of bliss is, the intention is that bliss is what is being mirrored between mother and baby as we ecstatically move through the portal of our mother's yonis, as we're literally crowned by our mother's yonis as we emerge through the birth process. We're being birth is a coronation of our majestic selfhood as human beings, and this is precisely why it's especially at the moment of emergence, at this moment of our coronation, that we and our mothers are put through this ritual abuse, essentially, right? It's that moment of coronation, of emergence, that is, again, it's not just symbolic. It involves every level of our existence. So as we're passing through the holy portal of our mother's yonis, this process that is designed to be psychedelically euphoric and phenomenally blissful, our entire bodies, and of course the most sacred part of our mother's bodies, are being stimulated, and that electrical grid, the intricate network of fascia, that is, it kind of operates like an antenna, and as our bodies are being caressed by our mother's yonis, there are signals being sent throughout the psyche and the consciousness. So the fascia is connected to all these levels of our existence, and we are being activated as human beings as we pass through the sacred gateway of our mother's bodies into the world. And this, I think, is our baptism in the image of God. And so, so what has to happen, to break that? What does the dark cult of obstetrics have to do to not only prohibit that full activation, because imagine if human beings were fully activated in the world. I mean, we wouldn't necessarily be going through the process that we're going through right now. It's all by design, so everything is fine. I kind of want to get too negative about this. Everything is fine. We're sorting it all out, but up until now, and I think we are actually undergoing a massive shift. So all of the wonderful New Age people who are talking about the ascension, they're absolutely right. I mean, this is what is really happening right now. I truly believe that. But up until now, the cult of obstetrics not only was very much involved, and this is still ongoing in industrial birth, but they had to prohibit our full activation, but also actually kind of reverse and invert and hijack the holiness of our incredible creative power as human beings. And in order to do that, the birth process itself has to be defiled and desecrated, and the sacredness of our emergence has to be really twisted. And this is done through ritual sexual abuse, which is what, as I said, industrial birth actually is. So, take things like just the constant violation of the birthing mother's body during pregnancy. We're constantly being probed and poked and fingered. And then all of that primes the pregnant woman to then willingly submit to the full obstetric ritual. And that, when birth is actually occurring, most women are so dissociated that they convince themselves that the sick and humiliating procedures that we as a culture have come to see as normal and standard, including all the stretching and fondling and cutting and touching, and just the extracting of the baby, as I mentioned before, and generally just the way that we are claimed, in again, very symbolic but also clear material ways. There's a kind of claiming that's done over the bodies of mothers and their babies. So and of course, once that ritual abuse ceremony is complete, then we've been so effectively brainwashed that women are thankful to their abusers, because the story is that they saved our lives and saved our babies' lives. So there's definitely a strong thread of Stockholm syndrome that is knit through our entire culture, and how this relates to self-sabotage, self-harm, self-abuse, self-sacrifice, addiction. All of these are how we self-sabotage. It's very much connected. When that primal imprinting that we've received from the birth process has inscribed and really branded onto our being that we are weak, because of course we're incapable of birthing ourselves, because that's the message that we receive during this process of extraction, and that we are essentially adrift and alone in the world, because that's also the message that we receive when we're separated from our mothers, and when our mothers have failed to protect us from that separation. That's how an infant incorporates the experience, right? That there's no one here to protect us. And when our first encounter of life on earth is pain, and this sexualized pain, no less. And babies too are routinely sexually abused. Doctors will often touch and probe the genitals of babies, and of course there's lots of male babies who are still mutilated at birth. The fundamental message, therefore, but also the set point, the message is that this is what we deserve. But what's also happening is that we're creating a kind of like a set point, like a designation for what we are allowed to have and to be, and for our fundamental worthiness and what we deserve. Like that's what we come to understand.
That becomes our safety level.
Exactly. It becomes our level. Exactly. Yeah. And then we grow into this outer world, in which we're raised by and surrounded by other people who are operating at a similar set point, or like, it varies a little, but not a heck of a lot in many cases, right? And this is all normal. And I know, look, it turns out that the medical industrial complex satanic cult, which is a satanic cult, by the way,
Mm,
also actually runs every other social and cultural institution and the banking system and the media and entertainment. And those institutions are all churning out constant propaganda and continuously reinforcing the story that we're unworthy. And we all just, we're swimming in it and we lap it up. And it's the atmosphere. Because unless a person has a foundation of power and self-love and spiritual integrity and connectedness, then it can be very, very challenging to then initiate a healthy and optimal separation from our mothers and fathers without needing parental surrogates or false
mm.
authority like government, like institution, like the medical industrial complex, which, among other things, function as surrogate parental figures for people who are completely emotionally, psychically, psychologically, spiritually stunted. And all of this is kind of the result of trauma fundamentally. And it all comes back to birth. And I think that most of the ways that we self-sabotage are really just forms of re-traumatization that replicate that initial fracture when we're born into all of this. But it's complicated too because simply choosing free birth for our babies, sorry, is not necessarily like
Not
that's
enough.
not end all. It's not the only, it's not, that's not going to solve all of this because it is so, we are so enmeshed in all of these various ways that we, and I was born into this kind of trauma myself. And that's why I constantly self-sabotage.
I mean, I know women who have had the most beautiful sovereign births, but still subject themselves to routine smear tests, which I find like so mind-blowing for me. It's like you've become intimate with the power of your cervix, and yet
Oh,
you let someone poke it and scrape it, and but it's that there are so many
yeah.
layers to it, and I know that you've never been a part of the medical system. I know you were well, you've
I mean, I have been part of the medical system, but probably much less so than most people,
than the
just
average.
than the average. Yeah. Yeah. But I've had my process and, we all have our blind spots, certainly, which is why I am so grateful for my teachers and my coaches who are able and willing to reflect to me how I'm completely contradicting myself and bypassing my own, well-being and not able to see my blind spots. So yeah, it's for everyone, really.
But it's what's been fascinating for me with particularly absorbing your teaching. So I joined your community, like I said, I wasn't pregnant at all. I just wanted a like-minded space, and it was the best thing I ever did. You call me out on my bullshit better than just, my God, it's exquisite getting called out on my bullshit by you. It truly is. For anyone who's interested, I went into Yolanda's community last week, sort of looking. I was looking for sympathy. I've been at the arse end of some severe trolling. Yo just called me straight out. She's like, "You're enjoying this." Fuck, you're right. I am, and I was. I immediately saw with how I had, because I was sort of stamping my feet like, how I'm trying to work out how I'm inviting this, and you gave me within 3 sentences that you're literally, and I was energetically, I was thriving. It made me feel super special, being so desperately trolled, having my own thread, no less. Gosh. And it was horrendously horrendous invitation of it, and your teachings are extraordinary, and I don't think that there is any such thing as coincidence. And so you launched I think it was the first cohort portal, wasn't it? The course that you did off the back of the book, and you launched that since May of last year, and I decided immediately to sign up for 2 reasons. And that was that, one, I wanted to go deeper into the teachings within the book, but 2, being the manifester that I am, one of my huge visions is to still have more children. And I thought, right, nothing better than spending my evenings, because I was anticipating lots of pregnant women signing up. So I thought, right, perfect. And God knows best, as always, because it was within your portal container. Like I said, I'd joined as a you know, just to dive deeper into the teachings of the book and to surround myself with pregnant women, visualize myself. And I think were you pregnant at the time with Margaret? There was a lot of pregnancy vibes I was trying to ride on. And it was, I'd started dabbling with German new medicine. When I say dabbling, in 2021, we were homeless for the duration of the whole 12 months. We lived in 10 different Airbnbs. And I'd gone through that sort of crunchy awakening of it's everything's, you know, EMFs are poisoning my kids, or it's Wi-Fi, or it's cleaning products. And we were bouncing through these Airbnbs. And if you were traveling during that time, during the sort of post-COVID time, Airbnbs particularly were on sanitation, high alert. You'd smell bleach the moment you rounded a corridor. And in Airbnbs, you often don't have control of the Wi-Fi. Sometimes if you're in an apartment block, you know, you're not switching it off at night. So I started to notice this pattern that my eldest daughter, who's incredibly empathetic and a super sensitive little soul, was showing these really specific symptoms every single time we moved to Airbnb. And at first I'm clocking it up to all this, it's all the bleach they're using, or it's on. And then I suddenly got this blinding, just this flash of it. This is completely and utterly connected to the move. She's a Cancer star sign, which is the most homebody of all the star signs. And she's just an absolute little, and that sort of was my introduction. And I started listening to some Melissa Sell video lectures on YouTube, and I started diving a bit deeper into, and I was like, yeah, I can see this little sense. And sure enough, in 2022, we moved into this home, and she got her home, and she's never showed any of those symptoms since. So we worked through it without working through it, but it was my introduction. And then while I was in Portal, I discovered a lump in my neck alongside lots of other symptoms that could have been perceived as like really severe night sweats and this super angry rash. And because I'd had breast implants in for 10 years, and I'd been told, I'd already had it planted when they were removed, that they were ruptured and that silicone all in your lymph nodes. I'd already had this plant of, you're going to get lymphoma at some point. Here you go. That had been dropped in, and it all happened. I get all these symptoms suddenly rushed to the surface during Portal. And it was, I know you didn't write the book from any aspect of self-healing or anything like that, but it was looking at myself through that lens of sort of how you describe the birth, and how it will just happen if you allow it. There's nothing you need to do. Just choose to allow this to move through you. It was applying sort of those principles in my head to can you put your money where your mouth is, sort of thing, Bieber, and just let whatever's happening happen. And it wasn't as simple as I did nothing, because it's all energy work, which is doing everything. You know, it's taking constant track of your thoughts and of your, like when I say I did nothing, I didn't do that, you know, I didn't shove coffee up my arse or go on a mega juice cleanse or, you know, start taking all of the, you know, natural, all of the natural, you know, routes that we're supposed to take. Nor did I particularly change anything, you know, dietary or anything like that. It's not that I did, but I did so much, because it was all coming out of Portal. It was all coming of being held in that container of, like, to sum it, if I was to sum your work up, it's like, bitch, you're not broken. You've never said that. Those are not your words. Those are my words. Yolanda doesn't speak like that. But that's what I was taking from it. That's what I was saying to myself in the mirror off the back of this work, was like, it'll just you're not broken. Why would you? and I don't know if it was reading sort of something along the lines of birth. This wasn't from Portal. I think it was just a post you wrote on Instagram forever ago, but it was something along the lines of like your body's not going to create a baby that it can't birth. And it was like, it was the same principle of your body's not going to produce something overnight to try and kill you. Why would it? And so, yeah, there's not so much a question here, but more of a gushing thank you for yeah, just for your teachings within that container at that time of my life. You know, everyone was there because they wanted blissful orgasmic births. And I was like, I think I've got cancer. Can you help me?
Well, you know, Biba, I've actually been quite surprised by the response to the course and also to the book, which are similar in many ways, but they're also quite different. Very different experience reading a book versus being in this immersive kind of mentorship environment. But we've actually had quite a few women who've joined the program who have had no intention of even becoming pregnant and who've joined really on the basis of wanting to explore their own creative and interesting forms of self-sabotage or to heal various physical and emotional blocks going on in their lives. So I'm really thrilled by that response, actually, that so many people have derived so much from the book and the program. Sorry, I just have in an ice storm here. It's fine. Excuse me. Oh my gosh. Just cut this part out, baby. It's fine. Yeah, it's great. It's wonderful. Everything is beautiful and wonderful. Our bodies are so fascinating, and the way that the mind can respond, actually. I mean, we can change our minds. And that, I think, itself is a huge revelation for most people. We have the power, even in a moment of transformative realization, to actually change the mind, and therefore everything else shifts in our entire field, the cells of our bodies as well. And people kind of, I think, feel a little bit goofy using the term manifestation. But I love it. I love that word because it really is the literal, actual truth of the matter. Everything in our lives is a manifestation. Every occurrence that we experience is an experience that has been brought into the world of the material on the basis of our capacity to imagine what's possible for ourselves. And that really is, it's enormously inspiring and exciting, and it's really fun. And once you kind of crack the code that you have cracked here, Biba, which is that we in fact do create our reality, another cliche that also happens to be true, life can get really, really, really fun, but also almost like nauseatingly uncomfortable, because I can't really complain about things the way that I did before, because I can see my own nonsense coming up immediately. And and I find, and I've noticed this in a lot of people that I worked with, that there's almost, we kind of reach a certain plateau where there's the urge to bitch and moan and complain about everything, but then we can see ourselves so much more clearly that we then end up having to find more interesting and creative ways of actually responding to our situation. And that is maturity, I think, or some level of maturity. And it's the most profound revelation. It has been the most profound revelation for me to see that I actually can become an adult. I can choose to grow up. And it is absolutely optional. There are many, many people who are very, very old and who have not chosen to become adults. But the fact that this is possible for all of us is, I think, incredible and inspiring. And that's also where I think it is important to explore the traumas that we have endured in our own entry into the world, and to look at the ways that we can birth our babies differently. But also, that's no excuse. Like, we do have free will, and we do have the capacity to shift our story and our experience. So that's one of the that's a little bit of a pitfall. I think it can be tempting to yeah, to have this amazing discovery that it all begins with birth and oh, my birth trauma is the reason that I'm such a disastrous human, and then to stop there and really yeah, like that's not the end of it. We can actually heal from everything, and a lot of people do not want to know that. They don't want to know that. They don't want to invite the possibility of self-healing or spontaneous healing into their reality whatsoever, because we love our brokenness and we love our excuses and we love our various forms of dis-ease, and there's always a payoff. Actually, there's always a big cookie involved in um, circling and dwelling on and sort of just wallowing in our own filth. It's very delightful for most of us. Yeah.
I do have one question that I would love to ask you, because it's a question that I get asked often, and I don't have any answer other than I just choose not to make it hard work. But I get asked a lot how I particularly how I manage as a single mother, which I know isn't your situation. Got a wonderful husband by all accounts. But am I mad being a homeschooling, self-employed mother? And I thought, well, I get asked this question all the time, and I thought I would be super interested in what a mother of 10 children with 8 under the same roof, always wearing a newborn, and you've got a tribe, and you homeschool, and you're self-employed, and you run your business. And I'm guessing that the answer is, well, I just choose to make it easy. But if you could give them, anyone listening, a little bit more to go on, because it is something that I get asked a lot, and I've not built anywhere near as a successful business as you have. And it's, my answer is always, well, I create what's on my heart and I throw it out there, and I connect with my kids when they need it. And I'm super loose. Like, I don't know where my kids are right now. I know they're somewhere on the land. They'll be with the goats. It's fine. So I don't know if my advice is the best for people, but it is something I get asked all the time. And I thought, well, I would love to ask how you do it. I know you've got Lee, but there's got to be some form of structure there.
Yeah.
Do you have structure? Because we don't have structure. I'm like, we'll read when we feel like reading. We'll do a bit of writing practice when we feel like writing. I've been on the very unschooling, and that's maybe a little bit of an excuse, whatever. We've lived as refugees for 3 years. It's just been take what we can get when we can get it. We've always done things like we'll always read together every night. That's always been a big thing. We always have dance parties every morning. I don't know if that's about the level of my structure. Could you share? Because I think you just seem to have it. From what I do see of your snippets on Instagram, they all seem such a happy, incredible, beautiful, connected little tribe. Your business, seems to be growing. So how are you doing it?
Yeah. Well, I mean, I don't have the perfect moment. Eva. Can you hear that?
I can't hear that at all, my love.
Okay, great. So sorry.
Please don't apologize. I'm sure I can get all this cut out.
Great. Okay, it's off. Yes. How do I do it?
Because I should add, for anyone that maybe doesn't know your practice interview, you live in Nicaragua with your beautiful kids. You've got I think we have similar things in that our kids all lost their shoes 2 years ago, and
Yes.
are outdoors, like maybe 98% of the time. I think I'm on a kind of similar thing with that.
Yeah, I mean, we left Canada, I think at a similar time that you left the UK, Biba, because we wanted a different kind of life for our children. And how do I do it all? I don't really do it all. Actually, I don't do it all at all. And I don't have a perfect life. However, we do have a fantastic time, and I love spending time with my kids, and I get to spend time with my kids. And we have a very full household, and there's lots of moving parts. And my experience of mothering has changed significantly over the years, not just because we've grown our family to ridiculous proportions, but because I have really gone out of my way to uh, seek out opportunities to learn how to change my mind and
Mm.
how to exercise my free will and how to take responsibility for my life and my circumstances and really how to grow up. And so the truth is that when I first became a mother, when I was very, very young, I was 20 when my first baby was born, I was not a grown up. And that has nothing to do with my age. There are lots of, well, there are, I think, some 20-year-olds who are grown-ups, but there are also lots and lots of 75-year-olds that are not. And I was not an adult when I first became a mother, and I made a lot of mistakes in lots of different ways. I was very irresponsible in lots of ways. But the most significant thing, I think, that affected all of the stuff I just mentioned was that I didn't actually realize that I could choose my state of mind, and I could
Mm.
choose to be in joy, and I could choose to be in a state of appreciation, and that I could know that the world in which I existed was really of my own making. And that in every single instance of life, we actually have a multitude of choices that we can make, that we always actually have a choice in every single instance, in every minute moment, and also at every, crossroads that seems significant. And that most people, for the reasons that we talked about earlier, most people feel completely at the effect of their environment, their relationships, their bodies, their world, right? And the real magic is in allowing ourselves to see that, in fact, we have infinite choice. And especially in motherhood, I always have the option of delighting in my children and of seeing their magic and their beauty and their commitment to curiosity and openness. And I always have the option of conjuring my highest self as a mother. And I have actually become more adept at doing that. And um, more than ever, and I hope that I continue to grow in this way, more than ever before at this point in my mothering life, um, I am able to, it's not that I don't ever feel depleted or annoyed or exasperated or enraged. I do, but I've managed to to shorten the experience shorten the time, the sort of the gap between
Mm.
feeling that flush of frustration and just like and quickly shifting into my wise mother self. And these are exactly the same skills or competencies that are involved in allowing birth to be the bliss that it's designed to be, right?
Mm.
We always have the option in any circumstance to, to lose it and to descend into the lower realms, right? Um, and just as birth is designed to be ecstatic and joyful, I absolutely know that mothering is designed to be ecstatic and joyful because our children are so, they're so beautiful and they're so amazing and they're
Mm.
so wise and so delightful. And a big part of this for me has been reminding myself or finding ways, and I've done this in a multitude of ways actually, and I think that we can develop these skills intellectually, but also these are spiritual skills. It's part of the spiritual muscle, and there's also lots of kind of mind-body modalities that can be brought in to support this, and this is a lot of what we do in Portal in the program. But a lot of it too has been rewiring my subconscious self so that I actually can love myself enough to parent my children with
Mm.
that same kind of love, because we are mirrors of each other. And when we lack patience and appreciation and tolerance for our children, that's actually just a reflection of all of those forms of lack within us as mothers. And yeah, again, we actually can heal. We can heal and we can change our minds. And
I must say, I've found your community, your online community, to be a really beautiful, beautiful space for that, because we are so easily influenced, and the whole mummy needs a break messaging is over everything. Is all over everything with social media. We are so easily influenced, and I realized it was, as soon as I left the UK and sort of started this nomad journey with my girls, it was the least stressed I'd ever been, and it was absolutely a choice. And then, when things started to regulate, and I'd get asked often, but you're with them all the time. I'm like, it's bliss. I don't want to be anywhere else. And I did feel a bit of a lone, like a lone voice in the wind. And then finding your community, because it's something that all the women in there really do feel passionately about, is that, this is a beautiful choice, and we can choose and every moment of every day to be finding joy and to be finding ease. And that has always been my answer when people have asked, like, how am I? Just choose to really enjoy my kids. I don't know how else to describe it.
No, it's really not so complex at all, honestly. But I do also understand that when you're in the thick of the kind of self-victimization that is common and tempting and also understandable, and can be a huge blind spot for us, and was for me at one time. Yeah, it can be really hard to shift out of that. And also, I have, over the course of the kinds of changes that have occurred for me in my life, or that I have manifest in my life, the whole manifestation conversation is really interesting, because it is about our inner self. It is about reconfiguring the subconscious. But the evidence of that change that occurs within the psyche is always in the external, as like the evidence is in the realm of the material. So I hear a lot of people say, manifestation it's not working for me, because I've done all the inner work and I'm just not getting the results. Well, that is, I'm so sorry, the proof that you actually have not done the inner, like that is, you're contradicting
the desire is in the having.
Exactly. Yeah, the proof of true desire is in the having. Exactly. And so when it comes to just the logistics of my life as a mother, I do have quite a, we have a rhythm, we have a structure. We have our family dinners every night at a certain time. We have a rhythm and a routine with our homeschooling. So we do 2 to 3 hours of like school in the
I
morning.
remember reading somewhere, it was probably in the community, that you did that really early, don't you, in the morning?
Yeah, we do it really early, and actually,
So I found that so inspiring. I thought, just get up and have that as the start. That must feel such a good start to a day.
It's wonderful. And actually, the very first step in our morning routine is that we go for a walk together in the jungle, and we take our journals with us. And so everyone does their journal entry.
Beautiful.
Magical little spot in the jungle. And that's great. And then we come home, we do some, maybe an hour and a half of further school work, but it's all my own priorities as a mother. Like, it's all based in the curriculum that I have developed for my children, which you can just imagine what that looks like. And so we're basically reading and writing to each other, and having lots of deep philosophical conversations. And then we have breakfast, and then everyone goes off and does their thing. So we do have a structure and rhythm to our day, and our kids have chores that they're expected to do. But within that structure, everything is very fluid. And I I don't, my kids don't, they don't have tantrums, and they don't have freakouts, and they don't really fight with each other that much. I'm not struggling as a mother, and that is precisely because I have learned how to disavow struggle. Like, I'm not in the business of, I'm not activated when my 3-year-old or 4-year-old says no to doing something. It's like I have learned how to really wield and manage and work with the energy of my kids. And my kids really like me, and they're inspired by me, and I'm inspired by them, and it's a very reciprocal, enjoyable relationship. I genuinely like them. I like spending time with them. I like mothering, and that is a choice that every mother can make. And what I often hear too, I have a nanny and I have a housekeeper.
Yeah, you'll know I'm manifesting the design when I've got one. You'll know that's when I'm back on track.
Well, a lot of
proofs in the having.
Easy for you, easy for you to say that you enjoy your kids because, you have all this support, and, what about them? And it was not until I had my seventh child, Yes, seventh child, that I actually started to receive that kind of support. And I wasn't able to shift the material reality of my life, because my husband and I spent several years living in New Brunswick in pretty serious poverty and lack. And that was during the time that I was very committed to all kinds of dramas that I have released and relinquished since then. And so it actually wasn't until I changed my attitude towards motherhood and my sense of deservingness around what I was allowed to have and to have for my children, that I then allowed myself to be able to hire a housekeeper and have a nanny. And so yeah, I do know what it's like to be in a pretty deep state of victimhood and self-victimization. And
It truly is a mindset shift, though, like you said, because I can say with all honesty, like now, I enjoy my children so much, and I'm so grateful for the life that I've created. And yet in the UK, I had a much better support system. I had the father of my children would walk through the door every day at 5 p.m. I had a magnificent childminder who was very like-minded and holistic. In fact, she was so lovely. She used to intentionally adopt children that had vaccine damage, and she was remarkable woman, and very on my wavelength. I had a great support network in the UK, and yet I was really subscribing to that mummy needs a break narrative. I wasn't enjoying my children anywhere near as much as I could have done. More days than not, I would be counting down to that door opening of their father coming home, just so that I could, have the metaphorical break. And, if you were to look at it from an outside perspective of, what my life is like now, it's like, well, now I've zero childmind, and I've zero anyone walking in the door at 5 p.m. And for the longest time, for all of 2021, we were all co-sleeping in one bed because we were bouncing from these one-bedroom Airbnbs. But my mindset shift had been, that's all it was, that I was just, this is so enjoyable, and this is so, and I was really subscribing to a different, to a victim place in the UK, despite this support network around me. So it is when it comes to the healing, when it comes to the birth, and it's just a mindset shift, is all it is. It's a choice, which is the ultimate lesson I took from Portal, is that it's all just, which that sounds such a basic thing to strip it all back to, but choose wisely. You've got an infinite amount in front of you, and I choose ease when it comes to my mothering. I choose to enjoy it. Oh, I think have I muted you, Yolanda, or are you muted?
Yes, you're absolutely right, Biba. I wish that the answer were more glamorous and like fun and juicy. That there was some kind of magic to it other than the magic that we all possess, that we actually can access at any moment, really. Yeah.
Yolanda, I'm remarkably grateful for this conversation. I've already signed up. Is Portal the second? This is the second time you're going to do it as a live.
It is, and I'm
a live
so
container. Is it 11th of March? Am I right in saying that?
It's the 11th of March. It's coming up fast, and I'm so excited. And it's just been so gratifying to hear from so many people who've done the program that it has changed their lives and that they've had the opportunity to apply the teachings therein and the tools and very, very practical resources in the program to so many different areas of their lives, and that they've seen such shifts occur. So I'm excited. And it's I mean, it's for me as well. It's very selfish, all of it. Not only do I get money, but I also get the opportunity to work through all of my own issues that are still, popping up here and there all the time. So it's an endless journey.
I'm remarkably excited about it, and I personally love that you're doing it in March, because I unsubscribed from the Gregorian calendar a long time ago. I think it's utter nonsense that there's no fresh start in January. Bore off. And then since doing so, I've felt such stirrings around March and around, for spring, for fresh beginnings, to start birthing yourself into your next highest, best, most brilliant. What more bullshit can I excavate? That's what I'm going into.
So much fun, isn't it? I just love it. And our potential is so monumental. It's endless as human beings. And it's been so much fun to be alive at this time and to kind of play with smashing all the icons. Let's be old, vital mothers in our 40s and have all the babies and have all the abundance, and just why not? We can have
just
it all.
Choose all that. That's what I'm going to choose. Let's choose all that.
Yes. Yeah, for real.
Oh, Yolanda, it took me so long to launch this podcast. I had so many blocks around it, which is a former broadcast journalist is absurd. But I wrote out a list 12 months ago when I was dreaming this up, and dream guests, you were number one. So I'm officially putting this down to manifesting powers that are back on track.
All there is to do is ask and then be willing to do and receive. Yeah.
But it's always so incredibly enlightening to speak to you, and I am so excited to be going through Portal again for the second time. I'd even be pregnant by the end of it, who knows?
Why not?
Right, why not? So thank you so much for joining me, Yolanda. And I'm going to put all details for signing up to Portal wherever you're listening to this. There will be links to sign up to not only to Portal in the comments, but there'll also be links to Yolanda's online community, which, as I've said before, is my favorite place to hang out online. I love your community. I love your community calls. I love the whole vibe in there. It's the most brilliant. If you're looking for a space online where you just none of the bullshit, and just mothers who are choosing to, well, I like that. When I come out of that space online, I always feel like the future's so bright because these women are raising it. That's how I always feel when I come out of that space. It's like
so
there's
wonderful to hear. That really is.
There's fuck all to fear out there, because sometimes I let my mind wander, like, are my kids gonna grow up like, being the only barefoot little and then you go in this community and it's like, nah, they're not the only ones. It's the most one. It's my favorite online space. So I'll put wherever you're listening to this, there'll be links in the comments to sign up for this coming Portal container, but also check out Yolanda's online community. Your mental health will thank you.
Yeah, and we're everywhere. Us powerful mothers mastered the art of choosing are everywhere. I also want to say, Biba, let me offer you a space in the upcoming round of Portal and a copy of the book to raffle or create some
Oh,
kind of
that would
community.
be incredible. Yes, thank you thank you so much. Like I said, it's my fourth time now going through it, and I take a different, it's my most highlighted dog-eared book at this point, but which is, my grandma always said that's a sign of a good recipe book when it's absolutely dog-eared. It is this, I couldn't, but that's so kind, Yolanda, thank you. We'll get a copy to get raffled off.
Perfect. A
And
copy of the
please,
book and a space in the upcoming course for someone in your community as well. So yeah, talk to
oh,
Olivia to give you all the
I will
details.
I will talk to Olivia. Thank you so much for joining me, Yolanda. I'm incredibly grateful, and I'll put links to follow you and to sign up to everything in the comments.
Thanks so much, Eva. It's been so much fun chatting with you.
Oh, I'll edit that out. Yolanda, you're the best. Thank you. Thank you,
Oh, I'm
thank
so
you,
sorry
thank
about
you. No,
all the
don't
mess.
worry. I'll cut this file. But are you drowning? You okay?
My entire desk is covered in water and everything is total disaster, but I'm fine.
Oh, bless you. Yeah,
I
I'll
hope
get.
I'm distracted because the entire time I'm like, oh my God, what is happening right now?
I couldn't hear anything, and you looked inside. You look so beautiful, Yolanda. You look so beautiful. Your skin is just everything. I'm really grateful to that. Thank you so much. I'll get the edited version sent over to you. Is there anything you want me to whip out, or because I know I don't remember what I say sometimes, especially when I'm speaking to someone that I admire so much. I met Jordan Peterson in Lisbon, and I've always admired him. I mean, I think he's a bit of a prat in a lot of things. I mean, he's fucking vaccinated and he's a farmer whore, and his Middle East views and all the rest of it. But his biblical interpretations and his oh God, I just think he's brilliant. And yeah, I made a prat of myself when I met him, and I forget what I say when I'm speaking to someone that I admire. Like, I've just read your book and I admire you so much, and then I just word vomit.
Oh, gosh, I love
But I'll get
it.
the edited version sent over by Olivia, so you can send. I'll let you know when it's posted. Thank you so much for agreeing to do this, Yolanda. I'm deeply grateful.
Thank you so much, Biba. I'm so excited. And yeah, maybe Olivia and I will work together and we'll pull some clips maybe and share
Yeah,
everywhere.
that would be amazing. I'm quite shit at all that, but if you want to, I'll send you the whole thing. I'll just, I've got I'm sharing a Google Drive now with Olivia, so I can just bang it in there. And yeah, pull whatever you need to from it. And I can share it yourself myself to your Instagram now. I
All
would
right,
ask
we'll talk to you
permission.
soon, Biba.
Thank you so much, my love. Ciao.